Hello everyone and welcome to another video from the team here at BlenderTech.com. That's BlenderTech.com. Don't forget to like the video and to subscribe for more Blender, Unity 3D, and programming videos. The team adds at least one quality video a day, if not more. And lastly, don't forget to remember, create your way. So today I'm going to show you how to take a regular texture and turn it into displacement, diffuse, which is your color map, and specular maps. So you could use programs like CrazyBump to do this, and they do a good job, but I wanted to show you how to do it in Photoshop because it's extremely easy. So this is just a regular texture, so this is what we would use as our color texture. So we would go and save this as, I'm using this as a floor texture, we would save it as floor color. So I've already done that. So now to make a displacement texture, all you got to do is desaturate it. So that's image adjustments, desaturate. You can see the hotkey there is Shift Control U. Shift Control U. That desaturates it because all image maps except for normal and color or diffuse is black and white. So we want to desaturate so there's no color data in there. And now all we have to do is play with the levels. So basically, black means it's completely low, and white means it's the highest part of the image. So what we want to do is we want to make the whites totally white by adjusting the levels, and the blacks totally black. And then we want to cut out some more white, so we have a kind of a mid-tone somewhere. And then you just want to adjust the mid-tone exactly so that it's mostly dark, because you don't want it like completely popping up everywhere, but something like that. So you would see that this is kind of a concrete texture. Something like that actually is perfect. So this would be kind of like a concrete texture, so you wouldn't really have a lot of detail except around these cracks. You can see there's a lot of contrast, so that's where it's going to really show that it's bumping up and down. So then you would just go File, Save As, and you would save this as your floor displacement texture. So floor.disp for displacement. Now for the diffuse, which is for the spec map, the specularity map, we do the same thing. We desaturate it and we just play with the levels. So you just got to think of it a little differently this time. You kind of do the same thing, just make the blacks black and the whites white. So now the white parts are going to be the most reflective and the black parts are going to be the least reflective. So this can be a similar looking object, but we want our floor to be a little bit reflective, and we want the dark parts to be not reflective at all. So we really want to put the midtones down towards the light so that the darks are dark. There's like basically no color in them at all. That way it won't be reflective at all. So it's actually going to be a very similar looking texture. You're just going to see more of the details. So something like that, and then you would go File, Save As, and you would call this your spec map. So you would go Floor Spec. So Specularity. So we've created a color, a displacement, and a specular map now in under 5 minutes in Photoshop from a simple texture. So let's go into Blender and I'll show you how we can use these textures now. So let's just go into top view and let's add in a plane. Scale it up. So this is basically going to be our floor. And just for rendering's sake, let's add in just a simple sun lap. That should work fine if you ask me. So let's just give it a material. We'll call it floor.mat. And let's split this and go into the node editor. So first up, the color map. I'll show you how to do that. This is very simple. If you don't know how to do this, you just go Control A, Texture, Image Texture. And for those of you that know my hotkey tricks, you just go Control A, TT for an image texture. So what you do is you go and you open, and you choose the floor underscore cull for color. Sometimes it'll be diff for diffuse. And then you just take the color to the color. Now if we render that, you'll see not a lot has happened. Why is that? Well, it's because we didn't UV unwrap. So let's do that very quickly. Just in edit mode, since it's just a straight cube, let's unwrap it. There you go. Now it's there. Let's hit F12. And now you can see we have our basic floor, but it's so flat. There's no life and character to it. It's just a simple flat image. Excuse me. So back in the node editor, that'll be slot 1. That'll be our before image. Let's go J to open up a new slot. So now we need to add in our specularity and diffuse textures. So for specularity, you would add in a gloss shader, right? And then you would add in a mix shader. You'd put them together. Whoa. Something like that. I can actually go into rendered view. So yeah, it looks like that. And you can change how glossy or how diffuse it is. So there's nothing for it to really gloss off of right now, but I'm just going to show you how you would use the image texture here. So you would add in a new image texture, TT, and we're going to open our specular map, and then we're going to take the color and we're just going to put it into the factor. See how it changed it? And change this to non-color data if you haven't already, because we're working with just black and white images. That'll prevent any errors. You don't have to do that if you've already desaturated, but it's just a good habit to get into. So now, instead of having a factor setting, now our image texture, our diffuse texture, or our spec texture, sorry, our specularity texture, tells Blender how much specularity there should be each part of the image. It should say that, it says that, okay, these dark parts should be not very reflective, but the whiter parts should be more reflective, and the lightest parts should be the most reflective. So let's just give this a quick render in slot 2. So this is before, this is after. So as you can see, not a lot of difference, but it does add realism. And in a more complicated scene, you would really see this. So let's go into slot 3 now. And now let's do the real stuff. Let's add in our displacement texture. So we go Control A, TT. Let's open up our displacement texture. And this is where you're really going to see results. So what we need to do is we need to go into our modifiers and add a displacement modifier. So as you can see, it does nothing right now. That's because we need to load in a texture. Now, so let's hit new. And then under texture, we need an image or a movie, and then we're just gonna replace it with our displacement texture. So as you can see, it has that little bit of detail in there. So now our displacement modifier is going to use our displacement map, and we can turn up the strength to make it more or less displaced. But that's not going to do anything until you add in a normal, whoops, not a normal map node. So you just put in color to color and normal to displacement, and okay, it's done absolutely nothing. So what we need to do actually is, that's because this is just a simple plane, so there's nothing to displace. So what you need to do is you need to subdivide it. So I'm just going to subdivide it a whole bunch of times. so that it has places to actually displace. So as you'll see now, it went crazy all over the place. So that's our displacement strength in there. Whoa, let's go back to where we were. You can why is it doing, why we want it going in the Z direction or normal? Is that what it already was? Yeah. UV. Why is it doing that? Z direction. So we just connect this back up. Actually, I don't think we need this at all since we're doing it through the modifier. So as you can see with our displacement map now, the places, it's actually a little bit too strong. We want like a strength of .1, maybe a little bit more. You can see the places. Now our displacement map obviously wasn't perfect, but the places that were perfectly white are the highest, and the places that are really dark you can see are the lowest. Like if we go to where it's really dark, you can see this crack here is actually physically displaced. So let's give that a render and see how that looks. So as you can see, that's added so much realism. So this is original, specularity, displacement. So as you can see, it's a bit too heavy still, but it adds, it basically looks like you modeled the entire texture by hand, except all we did was we used our displacement map, and then we just used our displacement texture. And we subdivided a bunch of times so that it had something to displace. And for more realism, you would subdivide it even more times. So yeah, that's basically it. So like I said, we have our color texture into the diffuse. We have our displacement into the factor of the diffuse and glossiness. And we have our displacement texture using a texture, which if we go into the texture panel, hey, why isn't it showing up? Just so happens to be floor underscore displace. So yeah, pretty cool. Just like that. And yeah, like I said, you'd have to play with the strength and the mid-level a little bit to get exactly what you wanted. Since a concrete floor is fairly flat, you wouldn't want too much displacement. Like 0.5 or 0.5, sorry. Something like that with a mid-level of 0.5. Yeah, and then let's just give it a bunch more geometry to work with. Just as one final thing, so we're just gonna subdivide it once, 2 more times. Whoa, that's a lot of faces. Okay. So now if we render that, oh, Windows, come on. You will see that we've got specularity. Some parts are more shinier than the other. Like you can see the parts that stick up are kind of more shiny. That's from our specularity map. Because of our displacement texture, we've got parts that look like they're actually popping up more than others. And because of our color map, we've obviously got the texture map to it. So that's kind of how you do it in Photoshop. It's very easy, very quick. Yes, you can use CrazyBump, but it's possible to do in Photoshop by just playing with the levels and making a black and white image. So again, that's where we started. That's with the specular map. And that's with the displacement map. So if we go back in Photoshop, again, all it is you just got to play with the levels and you just got to think about it. Okay, our specular map. We want in the specular map, the white is the highlights, the black is where there's no glossiness, the white's where there's complete glossiness. And then for your displacement map, where it's black will be completely low, no displacement. Where it's white, it will be the highest point, and where it's gray is where it's going to be the middle point. So just think of it that way, play with the levels, make sure it's black and white images except for your diffuse or color map, obviously, and you're good to go. So that's basically how you create them very fast in Photoshop. So this wasn't 100% full tutorial. I just want to show you how to make them in Photoshop essentially. But anyways, thanks for watching from the team here at BlenderTech.com. Again, that's BlenderTech.com. If you enjoyed this video and learned something, please like it and don't forget to subscribe for more Blender, Unity 3D, and programming videos. We now offer hard copies of our videos. If you'd like a copy to download onto your computer to watch later, let us know and we will upload it to our server for you to watch later in the media player of your choice. If you dislike this video for some reason, don't just leave. Instead, leave a comment or email the team at info@blendertech.com about what you did or did not like. We also take requests for tutorials, so let us know what you want or want more of. See you next time, and remember, create your way.